You are
Kolkata being
welcome.
my birthplace and my hometown, this makes it extra special for me. So today, what I plan to do is I plan to share and exchange with all of you some of my thoughts, ideas, and beliefs related to one of the most talked about topics, perhaps, in the corporate world these days, that is diversity and inclusion. Now, and how, as an agilist, as a scrum master, as a coach, as a change agent of our organization, how we can help our organizations to do better in this area. We will also try to take a look at a very high level at some of the initiatives which are going on in the globe and what are the researchers saying about the actual effectiveness of the initiatives that are taken, or is there any shortcoming, and how the Scrum values can help us overcome some of the common pitfalls and can probably give us a direction to a more inclusive workplace. But before we go get into all that, a little bit about myself. I'm Aniruddha, and I've been in this industry for the last 17 years. For the last 12 years, I have been interacting with various agile frameworks, and for the last 5 years, I have helped many teams in their agile journey as a coach. And during this whole time, I have been fortunate enough not only to work with people from different parts of India, but also from different parts of the world. And one of the most interesting learning that I had during this whole time was that how these people and their perspectives and their views, their culture, their background, not only affect the work that we do, but also how it affects us. So today's story, it began around 5 years back. So we have these open offices where we sit in rows of workstations, and I sit very near to my team. And every day morning, I have this ritual of stopping by my team members for a couple of minutes. Nothing formal, just informal chit chat, asking their well-being or if they need any help from me. And that day I was doing the same. And while I was doing that, I saw one of my team members. She was at her desk and she was watching a video on her mobile phone. After another 10, 12 minutes, when I have visited a few more of my team members, I still saw her looking at the video. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I was not very happy. So after some more time, when I finally reached her workstation, I couldn't help but to ask her that, hey, what are you watching? And I found out that it was not a YouTube video that was playing as I thought, but it was a live stream from the daycare center where she puts her child before coming to office. I will confess to you guys that I was ashamed. And I couldn't shake it. Even after when I came back to my desk, I was thinking about it because I was ashamed, not only because after so many years of working with my women colleague, I was completely missing a perspective, but it was also important to me that it was interesting that there were people out there who had that perspective. The people at the daycare center, they understood the need of my team member and maybe many others like her, and created that app for them. So I wanted to know what else people are doing, what other people are thinking about it, what's going on in the world. So I started reading. I started reading about working women, about working mothers, what other organizations are doing. And inevitably, very soon, I was reading about diversity, inclusion, equity. Now, these were not alien topics for me because I also work in an organization like many of you who has diversity as a stated value. But still, I was missing it. So I wanted to know what's going on in the world, and I saw that there's enormous amount of work that is being done in the field of diversity across the globe in thousands of organizations as well as at the social level. And two of those I find particularly very interesting. One is the Hifashi movement, which is also endorsed by the United Nations. And if you go to their website, you will see that it asks for your commitment towards diversity. And it makes me proud to tell you that as on today, we have the maximum number of commitment from India, followed by Rwanda. Now, there's a huge difference of population between India and Rwanda, and also the number of commitments that is there from India is insignificant compared to the total urban educated population of India. But that may be a different topic of discussion for another day. For today, there's another one that I find very interesting is CEO for Action. And if you go to their website, you will see that there's more than 1,500 CEOs and presidents from across the globe who have given their commitment to take action related to diversity at their workplace. Now, when you see so many leaders committing for something, the natural question to ask in your mind is why? Why are they doing all that? And when you see some CEOs doing something, you generally assume that that must be the smart thing to do, because that's what we expect them to be. Okay, so I started finding about that, and I saw that it's not only me, but many other organizations, starting from Forbes, McKinsey, Gartner, BCG, PwC, Deloitte. Everybody is very interested to find the same reason that why they are doing, whether it is the smart thing, because many of the time the smart thing for a business means something that would be beneficial for the business, and a benefit for the business many of the time get translated to what is profitable for the business, or for a better financial performance of the business, or a better brand value of the business. Those are the general concepts, right? So everybody is very interested to find out that whether we will be still making money if we do diversity. No, that's not what they're trying to find out. But one survey that I find particularly very interesting is a series of studies done by McKinsey since 2014, and the last one got published in May 2020, based on their data that they collected in 2019. And all in these surveys, there's a clear upward trend of a prospect of better financial performance by an organization which has got more diversity in the leadership, compared to a company which has got less diversity in the leadership or no diversity in the leadership. So we will still be making money. Oh, I mean, that's not what they say, but well. But what was interesting is that the CEOs were in favor, the numbers are in favor. Then why are we still talking about this? So let's just get to that by answering a very quick question. If I can please request you to type in your response to the statement on the screen. By typing in yes, no, or not sure. It would be very helpful. We can wait for some time to see some responses. We have some responses coming in. Thank you. Thank you that somebody is listening. So we'll wait for a little more time, maybe 30 seconds or so to know. Yes, we see yes, of course. Great. Congratulations. We see some no's and not sures also. Okay, no's in block letters. I don't know if that means something different, but good. Okay, we see that. Maybe we can wait for a little more time. Maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we see quite a few no's and not sure along with yeses, and that's okay, because that's what we sometimes find in some of the surveys as well. We see that only 22% of the employees are actually aware of the diversity data of their organization. So we are not alone. We have another 78% with us, okay? So that's one thing. And the other thing is that with all those commitments and uh, analysis and investment and initiatives and bells and whistles, still 33% of people still find it as a barrier in their organization. And the thing is, one thing that I find a little bit funny is that there's a huge difference of perception. Like the leaders we were talking about, where the business leaders think that there's only 10% of time that they may not be communicating that much about diversity. 17% of the employees and even 19% of the HR, which is almost double of the leaders, think that there is no communication. Okay, so no, it's no one's fault, you know. Thing. But if you think about the implication of that now, think about the nature of diversity, the initiatives we are talking about. It is about people, about the employees. So they should be the people who should get more informed. They should be the people who should be more involved. What we see here is actually the opposite of that, which is interesting. Now, with all these things that I have been talking about so far, where is Agile? Where we as Agilists can come in? Let's look into that. See, diversity is complex, no doubt about it. Okay, what you see here is a very popular 4-layer model of diversity at work. The most visible type of diversity in an organization is the outermost one, because that is created by the organization, right? It happens because of your managerial status, your work location, seniority, the division or department that you are working in. The one that is below it are some external factors. Say, for example, your marital status, your parental status, your education background, your income, etc. And if you think about these parameters, you have certain extent of control on some of them. Whereas the one that is beneath it, which is the internal dimension, which happens because of your age, your gender, your sexual orientation, your race, your ethnicity, is something that you do not have any control on. And if you think about it, this is the layer where most of the diversity initiatives at our organizations are concentrating on. We are trying to create diversity of race, racial diversity, gender diversity, diversity in age, etc. But look at the center, look at the core of it. That is personality. That is where your thoughts, your views, your perspectives, your beliefs, your likings, your dislikings, your values reside. That's what decides who you are, how we interact with each other, how we empathize with each other, how we collaborate with each other. And this is also the layer which gets neglected in many of the time, in many of our initiatives at the organization. Maybe because it is difficult to aggregate. It is difficult to gross up. You cannot aggregate your beliefs. You cannot gross up your thinking. But think about Agilists. We Agilists deal with this day in and day out. For us, our teams are not an aggregate, but the individuals who it consists of. Their thoughts, their struggle, their failures, their success is something that we deal with every day, and that's a choice made by us to live with these principles. These individuals and the people and their interactions form the basis of our Agile values and our principles. That is something that we have chosen as the way of our professional life. Now, I understand that Agile values were created keeping software development in mind, and that's what we signed up for, and that's where we apply it to. But after 2 decades of internalizing these values and principles, I think it's a time when we should be taking it beyond software development to other aspects of our professional and personal life. And we can do that because if we do it, we can play a crucial role at the very core of diversity where nobody is looking. Then where do we stumble? Let's understand that. Let's do a very quick exercise. You don't have to type in anything. What I request you to do is when I am going to say a few words, I want you to point to the word on the screen which you feel most associated with. So I'm going to say a few words and you need to point to the word on the screen that you see that you feel most associated with when you hear those words. Okay? Ready? Here I go. Delicate, strong, powerful, caring, family, career. What did just happen? Well, if you are like most of the people, then you would have associated more communal words with females and more assertive words with male. This type of implicit associations are ingrained in our unconscious mind. And this type of ingrained association can can influence our thinking about who might be qualified to lead at the workplace. We all have some mental pictures. These mental pictures are based on whom we might have seen to be successful in particular roles in the past. Say, for example, a woman as a nurse, or a man as an architect, or a woman as a dancer, or a man as a music director. And this picture can influence our thinking of who would be successful in those roles in the future. These images can shape our mind to think who is talented, who is able, whom we can trust with certain responsibilities, whom we can turn to for advices, whom we can even offer a helping hand to. We call it an honest mistake. Science calls it unconscious biases or blind spots. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious place. It takes 90% of our decision without us even knowing it. Our brain is overloaded with almost 11 million pieces of information every second in the outside world, whether we can only process 40 of them. So we are wired to make cognitive shortcuts based on past experiences to make assumptions. And these assumptions give rise to biases. And that becomes an hindrance in our way to create a more inclusive, diverse workplace. I would like to talk about a few biases with you today, which I see a lot in the workplace. A prototype bias. A prototype bias happens when we have a preconceived notion about who might be right for a particular role based on some stereotypes. Take orchestras, for example. We are habituated looking at orchestra with male musicians. But when in 1970s in New York, when orchestras started taking blind auditioning behind a curtain without disclosing the identity of the musician, the number of female musicians shot up by 20%. So either women play exceptionally well when playing behind the curtain, or the conductors had a prototype bias for the male musician, and that was robbing them of all the talent from the women musicians. A related bias is a similarity bias. A similarity bias happens when we are drawn towards people whom we feel familiar with or similar to us. Study shows that we naturally gravitate towards people whom we feel similar to us based on some shared social identities. Picture your friends, your neighbors, your closest colleagues. Chances are that the people in your inner circle are people who are pretty much similar to you. And this extends beyond this. This extends to our workplace as well. Study shows that when a supervisor is rating is giving feedback or rating their subordinate, the more similar the parties are, the higher or better rating that they tend to give. Researchers also find that when interviewers are taking interviews, if the more similar the demographics and attitudes are, they prefer those candidates. Think what it can possibly mean in your workplace, in your team. What picture comes to your mind when I say developer? How can we get past this prototype bias? Think about our Scrum values. It asks us to remain focused. Keep your objectivity. Set your objective criteria when you are taking interviews, during recruitment, when we are rating or giving feedback to our team members. People are not going to be similar to you, not same as you. Keep an open mind for accepting that and respect those differences. Have the courage to say that you are different than others. Have the commitment towards your team. Keep focused that your commitment is to deliver the best value to your customer and the best development for your team as the Agilist, as the Scrum Master. Let's take another small test. So again, in the chat box, if you can please type in your response to this question, who comes late to office, by typing in 1, 2, 3, or 4. We will wait for some time. If you can kindly type in your response, who comes late to office. Okay. Thank you so much for your responses. I see quite a few 4, 3s as well. 2, yes, of course, I see 2. 1, somebody is changing 2 to 1. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's nice. Thank you for being so particular towards it. Thank you for responding. Thank you. Maybe another sometime of, okay, 1 and 2. We have some confusion here as well. Thank you for responding, Nadia. A little more time, maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for responding. No one comes late to office. That is good. Let's take another one. Who is more opinionated? In the same way, please, in the chat box, if you can kindly, please put your responses. All are opinionated. 2. Okay. 2, 3. Can't judge. Maybe a little more time. I see a lot of 3s, 4s too. All. Maybe a little more time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being so particular about responding. Really, really thankful. What did just happen here? We don't know them, nothing about them, but somewhere we formed an opinion. That's something about first impression, right? Let's talk about that. See, not all biases are bad. You know, having a bias doesn't always mean that we are against something. It is very common to have a favorite color or a favorite food or your favorite sports team or liking being with your own family. Bias doesn't mean you are opposing something all the time. In fact, halo effect is exactly the opposite. When you favor somebody based on a positive first impression, in your mind, they can do no wrong, even if they prove you wrong sometimes. And thinking about them will be excellent at anything that you give them can actually set them up for failure. The opposite of halo effect is horns effect. It happens when someone is defined by a negative first impression. No matter what they do, they can't shake it. These halo and horn effects are often reinforced by confirmation bias. A confirmation bias happens when we look for information that confirms our beliefs and completely ignores those which contradict them. Let's take a small example. What rule defines this number sequence? Now that you have your rule in your mind, can you think about other numbers that also fit the rule? What about this? Which sequence fits? If you are thinking 20, 22, 24, you might be wrong. The simple rule was that the numbers just increased in value. But so all the sequences fit. But as we had a rule in my mind, it actually robbed me of any other possibility. Think what it can possibly mean for your team. Do we seek out for contradicting views that is against my belief? Or do I only accommodate those which confirms my belief? Which architecture gets selected? Who determines the technical architecture? Who talks most in the retrospective meeting? Who do we ask people in the retrospective meeting that what didn't go well, what we should stop doing, what we should do less, all those that questions the status quo? Let's again take a look at our Scrum values. It asks us to be focused. So setting up objective criteria again can help to see that who gets an opportunity and who not. Not one single shining moment or gloomy moment define a personality for you, a team member for you forever. People are going to have a different viewpoint, opinions than you. They are not going to be similar. Have an openness for that in your heart, in your mind, and respect it. Have the courage to question that status quo. We all want to believe that we think rationally and objectively, and all our motivations are free of biases, but we know that that's not always the truth because of our potential blind spots. The very first thing that we can do is to accept blind spots exist. By accepting they exist, we can stop and imagine what possibilities exist beyond it. More inclusive relationship, more innovative ideas, more diverse network, more better outcomes. Not everybody is same. So if you give the same thing to everyone, it will not help them to achieve the same outcome. It's not the equality that is going to give you the result. It's the equity that you need. I feel emotional talking about these things because we all have been on the giving and maybe most of the time receiving end of biases. So think about it. If I can summarize what we have been talking about, we have been talking about the remaining focused, keeping our objectivity all the time. Outsmart your mind. The next time you hear yourself thinking or others saying that, the first time I saw him, I had a bad feeling about him, or this is excuse me. Oh, a lot of remember. So the next time when you see that, somebody says, this is a man's job, she's a woman, she's going for maternity. Slow down your thinking. Ask based on what? Have the openness to accept the differences in people, in their background, in their culture. Your commitment is towards this whole community and the world and the change that we wish to see to this world. And have the courage to question the status quo, the courage to accept and acknowledge that we are different and say it out without any fear that I am different. It's not going to happen over the night. You are going to struggle. Your team is going to struggle. You need to help yourself and your team. Share transparently, communicate transparently about your experiences, about your learnings, and listen to your team's experiences, their learning. And keep a constant observation for any potential biases and fine-tune and adjust your objectivity. It was interesting to hear yesterday when in a speech we were talking about, we were listening to disciplined agile and their principles and promises, and the very first promise was to create psychological safety and embrace diversity. It's not about whether we agree or disagree with a specific framework or toolkit. It's about that mindset, about the thought process that it is time when we can take these principles beyond software development to the overall enterprises. Nobody denies the need of enterprise agility. We all say that we want more of agile values applied to the other parts of enterprise to bring in more agility to it. That means those values and principles being applied to all aspects of the enterprise, including people. I know that the Agile Manifesto was developed keeping software development in mind. They had that problem and they solved it brilliantly. And thanks to them, today, many of us have at least something which gives us a direction to solve the same problem, but we have other problems in hand also. And we cannot wait for another Agile Manifesto to come and solve that for us. We have to do that. And that is why I humbly invite you all to play your part in your organization, in your team, seeing people for who they really are, people like you with unlimited potential. Thanks to Slide Carnival for providing this amazing looking resources for me to create this